when you work with us and you kind of get the feeling of what we want to accomplish, it's hard to say no to that ask. We have this regulatory relationship with the people we serve. They have to share with us all the details of their lives in order to be compliant and eligible for the benefit of decent, safe, and sanitary housing at an affordable price, to a unique, affordable price to their family. And it would be easy to just stop there. Just be their landlord. Just make sure they have the basics of what our rules and regulations ask us to provide. But instead, and you can't do this unless you've assembled the right staff. So instead, we choose to take that relationship, which forces us to have each other's attention, and build on it, so that hopefully we can help make a family's stay in public housing shorter rather than longer, and provide other opportunities within the housing environment for growth. So you referred a little bit to some of it already. Introduction to fitness lifestyles, nutrition, more attention paid to nutrition, bringing educational opportunities into the community by taking advantage of the extra space we happen to have, in the way of community centers or common areas, so that the time spent here is as productive as possible. And the little successes you see along the way that people attain, push us to continue doing that. And it seems like every year we add something to that arsenal of new kinds of opportunities to offer, because just learning from the experiences we've had, with the first ones. And the more people see that, we're willing to go those extra yards and miles, then the more they seem to come around and make suggestions on how we could improve on that. And we listen, and together, we make decisions with our communities. An example of that is this is the time of the year, happens to be a time of the year where we confer with what we call our resident advisory board, and we come up with goals and objectives for an annual plan, so that whatever we embark upon for the next year, it's going to note that, well, we want to continue doing this, that, and the other thing, but here's another set of ideas we can incorporate that are either new or would be complementary to what we're already doing. So it's a constant process of growth and innovation that, again, really couldn't be accomplished without the complete buy-in from people who work here. And then that's infectious. And then we get buy-in from people who live here. And you know what? And then eventually some of the people who live here become some of the people who work here. And it's just, it's like a sort of like a domino effect, but it's one that always seems to keep us moving in a positive, right direction.
When you and I first met about 10 years ago, we had something called the Building Block, a newsletter that we called the Building Block. And everything was about building. And it wasn't just about the status quo or keeping things the way that they were. I've heard you talk about why we've got people's attention. They get these other things. I heard Doug Daniels say this in one of our segments, that people are here to rebuild their lives. They are coming through here because they are trying to better themselves. And if this was just a housing operation where people were just kind of coming into the house and couldn't get help from, say, Murray Walker, who does entrepreneurial stuff and does all kinds of coaching, if they couldn't get that kind of help, it would just be housing. If they couldn't get Debbie Montgomery and the health component, Anumi, it would just be housing. If they didn't have access to a farm, if they didn't have access to these buildings, it would just be housing. But it's so much more than housing. And I think this is the point of this conversation, is that you are putting out a booklet that says we are accountable. And this is how we get it done. That's what this booklet is all about. It's the annual report. The annual report covers a fiscal year from what time to what time?
Our fiscal year technically starts July 1st and ends June 30th.
And so this one will be we'll be starting a whole new cycle July 1st. And there's some new things that are going on. One of the things that people will discover is that there's some housing happening out in Yaden. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was one of the features of this past year's report. 44 new units of housing were created during that year in Yaden. It's an elderly building, 4 stories, located on Lansdowne Avenue, right by Mercy Hospital, if you're familiar with the terrain there. And because of us, 12 of those 44 units are what in our industry are known as ADA units. Anyone who works in human services that has anything to do with housing knows what that acronym stands for. But for those who don't, ADA is the American Disabilities Act. And through that, a lot of opportunity has been created in this country for housing that is more suitable to housing people with physical disabilities.
How many scholarships did the Housing Authority give out over this fiscal year?
I think we had 4 this year, usually about 3 or 4 a year. Yep.
Yeah. So again, one of those things that does not have to be done. And I believe it was Norman Wise that started that process some years ago, correct?
Yeah. Again, this goes back to that whole concept of building community. So how do we get the money to give out in the form of scholarships? It's not like it's federal dollars that they're handing over to us and say, here, give out some scholarships. No, but it's something we want to do. So we raise the money on our own. And in the case of that program, we link, for lack of a better way of putting it, we lean on the businesses that we have helped to get work throughout the year, just to give a little back. Why don't you plant a seed for a possible future employee of yours by helping them go to college? And when you work with us and you kind of get the feeling of what we want to accomplish, it's hard to say no to that ask.